Thank you for coming up and doing this too.
Welcome everybody to Love Your Birth 2019. One of our goals as an organization is to provide information and education to our community. We are a group of women who are very passionate about birth and about all the things that surround that. And this year we are going to have an expert panel on perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. We want to help break the stigma of that, open up the conversation, and let moms know it's okay to not be okay. And we're going to get some resources and get some help for everybody. So we have two speakers up here, and I'm so thankful to both of you for your time and for coming out here. You are all set. So first we're going to hear from Angie Cox. Angie is originally from Houston, Texas. She relocated to South Carolina in 2007. She met her husband in 2013 and then had two kids. Kaylee is 3 and Emmett is 6. Side note, Angie loves Harry Potter, and if y'all see Randy Blake back there and that adorable Harry Potter picture, that is baby Emmett. So, love her.
Me too.
While her favorite job is being a mom, she also works full-time as a medical laboratory technician.
Thank you. Thanks, Kristen. So I experienced postpartum depression after my first pregnancy with my daughter. I had heard of women like wanting to hurt their babies, but I didn't want to hurt my baby. I thought that was the major sign of postpartum depression, but that wasn't how it looked for me. I didn't want to hurt her. I loved her, wanted to snuggle with her all the time, but I had been having overwhelming thoughts for a while. I was thinking of ways to get hurt where somebody would take my daughter for just 2 or 3 days. I didn't want her to go away. I just wanted a break. And I needed that story to be believable. But I didn't think too much about it being a sign of depression. I just thought that every mom was overwhelmed, right? But when my thoughts evolved from I just need a break to where my husband could find me that would be most convenient for him to clean up the mess, I knew in that exact moment, standing in my shower, that I needed some help. So since I had been screened during pregnancy and postpartum, I was aware of postpartum depression and that I had a very high chance of having it. So when I found myself in the trenches, I knew that that's most likely what it was. First, I told my husband about what was going on, but he really didn't know what to say. He was working 80-plus hour work weeks and didn't have any more of himself to give to me. So he told me to go talk to my doctor, but I had already made an appointment with my midwifery group. And later I followed up with my family doctor and I found a therapist. I started taking prescription medication and I went to therapy frequently and it helped. But I wish that I would have had the courage to say that it wasn't working as well as I needed it to work and I should have went back for more help. I actually lost my job before I realized that I wasn't 100% better and I needed to try other medications. And my family doctor helped me through that. In the end, I needed more self-care. I needed my tribe to come to me and to let me take a shower and let me have a nap, a long nap. And I wish I'd have reached out before I got to where I was. But through medication, therapy, and self-care, I finally dug out of the trenches of postpartum depression. Now, this is my postpartum story, and everyone's story looks and feels very different, and I hope that my story helps someone and that it encourages someone to seek help sooner than I did.
Great. Thank you, Angie. I think it's extremely brave of her to come up here and to share her story with everyone, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being able to do that. Next up, we have Sarah Todd. Sarah obtained her Bachelor's of Science in Psychology from Clemson University in 2011, and then her Master's in Social Work from the University of South Carolina in 2013. So I think she's just confused.
I went to both. I like both. I don't know.
She doesn't know who to root for. Sarah always knew that she wanted to be a therapist, but after becoming a stepmother to 2 beautiful boys and a biological mother to a third, she found her passion in helping women navigate the complexities of motherhood. She has found that motherhood is this primal and beautiful thing that never fails to leave her in awe of the power of the people who take on such a role. And I do have some
Yeah. All right.
All right, so we're going to play.
We'll just share.
We'll just
Okay.
share. This is just got one mic. It's fine.
Yeah.
This is fine. Everything is fine, guys. It's fine. So why do you think there is such a stigma around getting help in postpartum depression and perinatal mood disorders?
Well, like Angie mentioned, there's a lot of stigma about whenever you have postpartum depression that you want. Okay, just right in my face. All right. You want to hurt your baby, or you're not interested in your baby, and that is not always true. But that does leave us with a stigma about getting help and seeking treatment, and it doesn't help whenever you hear news stories that such and such went to the emergency room because they were having postpartum symptoms, and all of a sudden DSS gets involved. There is more provider education now coming about. There's more resources in the area. I love that we've got a lot of holistic people here that can help refer us to who we need to see. But yeah.
A little louder.
Sorry.
They're saying they can't hear you in the back.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. What do you think is the biggest roadblock to getting help?
Okay. All right, let me see if I can get this right. All right. Providers really need to be on the lookout for it, and they're not always on the lookout. OBGYNs, pediatricians, you get the Edinburgh postnatal scale usually after you give birth, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes we know how to answer those questions so people don't, think twice. I know that ACOG is now recommending that more of those scales be administered at 1, 2, 3, and 6 months postpartum. And we need especially close monitoring for those moms that have higher risk factors, be that previous mental illness, maybe teen moms, moms that have been through in vitro fertilization or have had miscarriages. Those need especially close monitoring and support. Definitely having all the other providers around provide resources and know what those resources are. So, yeah.
What are some signs that partners can look out for that would be helpful, and how can they start that conversation with a new parent?
Okay. So partners can definitely be on the lookout for behavioral changes and seeing if their loved one is getting sleep. Like, are they not getting enough sleep? Are they sleeping more? Those are some signs to be on the lookout for. Are they eating, showering? Be aware of any sort of behavioral changes like that. Maybe they're snapping more and that's not typical. You can gently point it out and just say, hey, so it seems like you're not really yourself. Are you okay? What's going on? You can talk to me. That's a great way to have a conversation, or even say, how are you? Can be enough sometimes. Or if they're seeming really overwhelmed, you can say, hey, can I help you with that? And sometimes that can open up the conversation.
Yeah. Partner support is so critical, and it's hard for us as moms and as women to reach out and ask for that a lot of times.
Right.
So how common are perinatal mood and anxiety disorders? So we have this big overarching umbrella, and a lot of things fall underneath it. So tell us kind of what falls under that category, how common these things are, that kind of thing.
So overarching, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders affect about 15 to 20% of people who have given birth. It affects about 10% of partners as well. Specifically with depression, it usually affects 15% postpartum and 10% while pregnant. Anxiety is 6% during pregnancy and 10% postpartum. Post-traumatic stress disorder affects about 9% of women. Perinatal psychosis, which is where all this stigma comes from of having delusions, hallucinations, wanting to hurt your baby, that affects 0.1 to 0.2%. So a very small population.
Thank you, guys. I think it's important to know that the stigma and that really scary thing is a lot less, and there's a lot of other things that are a lot more common that we can still reach out and get help for. Check my thing here. All right, so you have some of South Carolina statistics.
Right.
So what some of those perinatal care are, and so tell us more about what our statistics are and what things we can do as a community to help improve them.
Okay. So statistics for South Carolina, about 14.1% of moms reported a perinatal mood disorder. And I think right there, reported is the important word. I bet you, I know, more moms have experienced it, but oftentimes, we don't talk about it. So some things that we can do to improve is to definitely be right here. Talk about it, bring awareness to the issue, make sure providers have resources and they know where the support groups are. Like, if I'm not mistaken, Baby Birds, or the Baby Bird doula has or Little Orchids, I'm so sorry. Sorry, there were a lot. But yeah, Little Orchid doula has a support group, if I'm not mistaken. Even the La Leche League is a great support too. So just, I guess expanding support, expanding resources.
Yeah, I think finding your tribe postpartum is so important, and that can come from so many different places. Angie talked about having her tribe and having them come in.
Yes.
Angie and I know each other through church. We're in the South, y'all. There's big church communities here. You can lean on that tribe.
Get that meal train going.
That's right. Get the meal train going. Like Sarah said, the Leche League is another great resource. Baby Wearing is another great resource. Find your people, whatever that looks like for you. All right. So last question. All right, this is the big one. So other than coming to see you, because you are a counselor here in the area, you provide support, and you take Cross?
Yes, I do.
So you take Blue Cross insurance, so we have a little bit of insurance coverage there, and that's a whole different conversation, right? Insurance coverage.
That is.
So what resources do we have for community members who need support, specifically for perinatal health?
Okay. So like I mentioned before, the support groups in the area, if it is something dire and you are thinking of hurting yourself or your baby, you can text HOME to 741-741. That's the National Crisis Line. And then there's always the National Suicide Hotline. That's 1-800-273-8255. We also have PSI, Postpartum Support International. It's a great online resource. They have local people that you can call and connect you to other resources as well. I'm actually going to be one of their coordinators in the area, so I can refer you as well. UNC actually has a wonderful resource in terms of having a perinatal inpatient psychiatry unit should things get that bad. That's really close and fantastic that we have. Kelly Helms is another counselor in the area. Stephanie Berg is a psychiatrist that specializes in perinatal mood disorders as well. I know Dr. Melissa Canaday and Jeanette Spence, who's an APRN, work with postpartum women. There's Susanna Baldwin in the upstate, who's a therapist. And then I just recently connected with a lady named Amy Jackson down in the Low Country that does telehealth. So if you can't get out of the house, that's not a reason not to talk to somebody. You can connect with her, and she will do therapy over Skype. So,
thank you so much for that. So if anyone was unable to hear all of those resources completely, or didn't quite catch all of our panel, big thank you to Ian over here, Rachel's husband. He's been recording this for us. We will upload this to YouTube and to our social media accounts, and also provide you some links and some information for all these resources that Sarah mentioned, so you have access to them. Because resources are no good if we don't have access to them. So thank you guys for coming out. We have a little bit of time still. So there's going to be some more announcements. Oh, correct. Annie is reminding me that Sarah's pamphlet is in each bag. It's amazing, guys. I'm so impressed.
Aw,
I don't know if you did that yourself or if you had somebody do it.
I did.
Did she do that herself? She's so awesome. But it's got like the top 10 ways to take care of yourself.
Just 10 tips to take care of yourself in the postpartum period.
10 tips to take care of yourself in the postpartum period. It's in your swag bag. If you don't have a swag bag, please go get one, because we need you to check in. Please go get a swag bag.